Alright you lot, welcome to the channel where we pull no punches and tell it how it bloody is. Today we're diving into the world of cheats. Yeah, those wretched scoundrels who think that gaming geniuses cause they can throw a few quid at some software to make themselves invincible. But wait, are the days numbered? We're going to unpack why Europe's top court might finally be taking aim at cheaters. And trust me, it's not all sunshine and legal loopholes. But before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe and all that bollocks. Helps the channel grow. Alright, now on with good stuff. Alright, now let's talk about just how damn easy it is to become a cheat these days. Look, we're not talking about rummaging around code or soldering bits on your PC like it's 1995. No, cheating in games has become as easy as buying a pint. If that pint costs you 150 quid a month. Yeah, I know, right? It's no longer just some dodgy download you grab off a shady forum. Today it's whole market practically gift wrap for cheaters. And with full sites openly offering services, it's almost insulting how legit it all looks. Let's break down how industry operates, shall we? It starts with these cheat providers flaunting the wares like they're selling designer handbags. And just like luxury goods, there are tiers of cheats. From a basic aimbot to Rolls-Royce or exploits. Packages with DMA cheats that bypass even tightest anti-cheat measures. One such example lets you slap down over 100 quid for 30-day subscription for creme de la creme or undetectable cheats. And kicker? This stuff ain't even subtle. It's all there, rating open with price lists, feature breakdowns and even support options. Imagine this, you've been fragged in XDefiant by some sod who can see you through walls. He's sitting there laughing, sipping his latte, thinking he's a tactical genius when all he did was shell out for ESP software. And it's not just some minor blip, this is a multi-million-pound operation, feeding off frustration or actual players. So why are players willing to pay? Cheating, frankly, makes them feel like gods. Who needs skill when you can drop 50 quid and have an advantage that a normal player could only dream of? And cause these cheats operate by manipulating in-game data without altering core files, they're often hard to detect. This is what's pushed companies like Sony to fight back, arguing that live data manipulation should count as a violation. Now here's where it gets juicy. European Court of Justice is now legal gatekeeper for entire EU, about to decide if these so-called undetectable cheats are actually violating copyright laws. All legal circus kicked off when Sony had enough of cheaters tarnishing their games and decided to bring hammer down. They argued that even if cheats only manipulate game data rather than rewrite it, they're still violating intellectual property rights. So why should you care? Because this ruling could finally get game companies some serious firepower against cheat providers. If ECJ decides that even changing in-game data, like tweaking your character's speed or firing rate by exploiting RAM, counts as modifying software, it could open a whole new world of copyright enforcement. We're talking potential criminal charges, takedowns and massive fines for cheat providers across Europe. Let's break it down. Cheat software itself don't actually touch games' core files, which is what's made it tricky to prosecute. Cheat sellers argue their services don't modify alt in traditional sense. They just mess with data as it's being processed, essentially making it a live hack without technically changing game code. But Sony and other companies sick to death of seeing their games ruined by cheaters want ECJ to label even sleight of hand as infringement. If that happens, it'll be game over for many cheat sellers operating in EU, at least theoretically. Now to be clear, this don't mean streets will be free of cheaters overnight. Let's not kid ourselves. We're dealing with an industry that adapts faster than a dodgy politician in a scandal. But a strong legal precedent could mean more aggressive takedown, more cooperation across borders, and maybe, just maybe, few high-profile cheat developers in court. Now let's dive into the real battlefront here, anti-cheat technology. Imagine it's a constant arms race where every new trick anti-cheat developers roll out countered by cheat providers within days, sometimes hours. And here's kicker. Tech companies are spending millions on this battle, while cheaters just have to fork out 50 to 100 quid to stay one step ahead. Current anti-cheat systems like Easy Anti-Cheat, BattleEye and Ricochet work by monitoring game data for suspicious behaviour. They're supposed to spot players doing things no sane human could, like snapping instantly to headshots across map or ignoring all recoil like they're some kind of FPS god. But here's the problem. Cheat providers know exactly how these systems work. Many of these providers market the software as undetectable, boasting about tricks like DMA, direct memory access hardware that intercepts game data in ways that current anti-cheats just can't catch. Now, if ECJ sides with game companies, anti-cheat devs might finally get more than just tech to fight back. They could have legal backing to go after cheat sellers directly, targeting entire supply chain of cheats rather than playing whack-a-mole with individual cheaters. But even with legal angle, let's not kid ourselves. Stopping cheats on a technical level is like trying to dam a river with a handful of rocks. These cheat makers constantly update the software, exploiting every little gap in code. They even work with beta testers who are basically glorified lab rats, tweaking and testing cheats to make sure they stay one step ahead. And result? Anti-cheat developers spending fortunes on updates, patches, and re-engineering the systems every time cheats find a new exploit. It's a never-ending drain on resources that gaming companies could otherwise spend on, I don't know, maybe actually improving games? So here's where we're at. Industry needs a multi-pronged approach. Tech alone won't cut it, but neither will legal action by itself. It's about time these cheat providers started getting the same pressure from courts that music pirates faced back in the day. Now let's dig into the dirty little truth behind cheating in games. It's not just a handful of bad apples ruining it for everyone else. Turns out there's a whole community of players who pay big money to cheat, and they're not your typical gaming newbies who just need a little help. They're players who fork out serious cash for premium cheats, like they're subscribing to Netflix for losers. Let's talk numbers. These people aren't buying cheats for a one-time laugh. Nah, they're subscribing monthly to stay in game. Sites charge upwards of 50 quid a month for cheats that come with customer support, updates, and constant improvements to invade anti-cheat detection. It's basically a VIP pass to gaming immortality, sold to players who just don't want to put in time, or worse, those who get a rush from ruining experience for everyone else. So why do they cheat? For some, it's thrill of God mode, same mindset as a hacker who gets kicked from breaking into something they shouldn't. But for others, it's just pure laziness. They want bragging rates or an IKD ratio or a top spot on leaderboard, but they don't have patience to grind it out. And believe me, these folks will defend their habit with a million excuses.
Oh, just do it to even playing field.
Or,
anti-cheat is a joke anyway, so why not?
Right, because best way to protest cheaters is to become one? Logic is about as solid as a chocolate teapot. Then there's culture of pro cheaters who act like paying for acts somehow makes them legit. Some even trade tips on how to avoid bans and boast about which acts are most advanced. It's like a twisted community of wannabe game-breaking elites. These players aren't bothered about fair play, they're in it for clout, and they'll spend whatever it takes to get there. But it's rub, this mindset is exactly why the game industry is spending millions just to stay one step ahead. As long as these players keep pouring money into cheats, demand for acts will stay alive and well, no matter how many court cases or tech solutions we throw at them. Now let's talk about what we'd all love to see happen. Actually making cheaters pay. You'd think the idea of losing your cash or getting an hefty fine would be enough to scare off most people, but sadly, current slap-on-wrist approach just ain't cutting it. So what if we made cheating not only a miserable experience, but also an expensive one? How about idea of suing cheat providers themselves? Now I know what you're thinking, suing people over video games, but hear me out. Some companies have already started taking legal action, like Riot Games and Bungie, who won a $2 million lawsuit against cheat distributor Gator Cheats in 2021. And it's about time. These lawsuits could lead to real legal precedent, giving companies more leverage to go after cheat providers, not just in Europe, but globally. It's a costly and slow process, sure, but when you're dealing with cheaters willing to spend hundreds on premium hacks, hitting source can actually start to shrink market. But let's talk about real gold mine here, subscription-based bans. Picture this, player pays the monthly cheat fee, gets caught and then loses all access. They'd have to pay another subscription fee plus whatever cheat costs them if they want to get back into the game. Over time, these bans would rack up serious losses for hardcore cheaters, making all experience unsustainable for all but wealthiest players. Real question is, would this actually work? Can hitting cheaters where it hurts, right in the wallet, really shift culture of cheating? And is it enough to make people rethink shelling out money for cheats? Well, let's break it down. Thing is, cheaters don't always face consequences for their actions. Sure, a quick ban might discourage some, but others just laugh it off, creating new accounts or slipping into another game with a fresh identity. While a few bans and lawsuits against cheat providers like one Bungie and Riot Games scored may seem like a win, they've only scratched the surface. Reality is, cheating is a massive business, with millions of players actively participating, or at least turning a blind eye to it. And some of these cheats are so cheap that cost of getting banned is practically negligible compared to higher winning by any means necessary. Let's face it, some of these cheats are laughably affordable. For example, you can grab an aimbot or a warlock for a fraction of what it costs to go out for a decent dinner with your mates. So if cost of getting caught is lower than price to cheat itself, it's no wonder that many players are willing to take risks. They can use cheat for a few weeks, climb ranks, and then simply toss their account away if it gets banned. But what if these bans weren't just about locking account? What if consequences went deeper? Financial penalties might be key to changing culture of cheating. If game companies could start slapping fines on cheaters, either through direct penalties on their accounts or lawsuits targeting cheat developers themselves, that could begin to chip away at this behaviour. But here's a twist. It's a cultural shift we need, not just a legal one. Cheating's become normalised in many circles, and until that mindset shifts, no amount of banning or suing will make a dent. To actually put a stop to this, there needs to be a larger cultural push, a zero-tolerance attitude that community buys into. If we make cheaters feel like social pariahs, maybe that'll do the trick. Look at how cheating in professional sports or even music industry has led to public shaming, fines and lifelong bans. Sure, gaming's different, but you'd be surprised at how far social pressure can go. And yes, some of this is going to have to come from a grassroots level too. Players need to hold each other accountable. You catch a cheater in your lobby, report them, shame them, make them feel like that one's with something to lose. This combined with legal and financial pressures might just be what it takes to make cheating less cool and more career-ending. But until we see this change, players will keep riding cheat wave, laughing all the way to bank, or, in this case, banned account. So can financial penalties work? They're a start, but we had a broader cultural shift. It's a bit like trying to stop a tsunami with a sandcastle. Still, every little bit counts. So are game companies even capable of winning this fight against cheaters? I mean, we've already seen that cheaters are crafty, with access to tools that circumvent even more sophisticated anti-cheat systems. And let's face it, some of these companies are playing catch-up with cheaters who are always one step ahead. But here's the thing, are they really trying to win, or are they just going through motion? Let's take a look at how game companies like Activision, Ubisoft and Riot Games have been handling this issue. They've thrown millions into anti-cheat software like Ricochet, BattlEye and Easy Anti-Cheat. These systems track player behaviour, scan for suspicious software, and even monitor player hardware for signs of cheat-related activity. But as we know, these solutions aren't foolproof. Cheaters are finding ways to bypass them all the time. Just ask anyone who plays Call of Duty or Fortnite in the past year. Despite constant updates, some cheats are still out there, just as effective as ever. Now here's kicker. While tech is expensive and ever-evolving, it's clear that battle is not just about software. In fact, some experts argue that game companies need to do more than just rely on anti-cheat tech. They need to implement a holistic approach that includes better community policing, stricter penalties, and true commitment to cleaning up player experience. Riot Games, for example, has worked tirelessly to combat cheating in Valorant, but they've also built a community reporting system that helps players hold each other accountable. Problem is, cheaters don't always face consequences they deserve. Sure, you can get a ban, but what about a fine? What about losing your entire account for good? At some point, cheaters need to know that risk outweighs reward. And let's not forget, legal side of things is becoming more and more important. Companies like Epic Games and Activision are starting to target cheat developers directly, filing lawsuits and pushing for stricter enforcement for intellectual property rights. In some cases, these lawsuits are already bearing fruit. Take Gator Cheat's lawsuit, for example. Riot won a massive case and walked away with a hefty settlement. But it's still a drop in ocean when you think about how many cheat providers are still out there, making money hand over fist. So can they win? In short, maybe. But not if they keep taking easy route and treating cheating like a bug that will go away with a patch. They need full-on, all-out war, with better tech, better enforcement, and a commitment to rooting out cheaters at source. If not, cheaters will continue to laugh all the way to the next leaderboard, paying the monthly subscription to cheat their way through ranks. So, I'm sure you're all wondering, what happens next? Will cheaters keep ruling roost, or is end near for digital scumbags? Here's the deal. Fight against cheating in gaming ain't gonna be solved by a simple patch or a couple of court rulings. Nah, this is a long-term war. It's gonna take tech, legislation, and frankly, a shift in gaming community's attitude. But there is hope. Legal action, tech improvements, and growing awareness mean that we're finally seeing cracks in armour. Cheating in games is a multi-million-dollar business, and demand for cheats ain't going anywhere. Yet. Market thrives on ignorance or anti-cheat systems and lazy, impatient players willing to pay for shortcuts to success. But with companies like Riot Games, Ubisoft and Activision starting to seriously tech on battle with both advanced anti-cheat systems and legal consequences, we could see some real change in the near future. But what does that change look like? It's not just about making cheaters pay, it's about making cheating not worth it anymore. A cultural shift, a crackdown on cheat distributors, and severe consequences that go beyond a ban. Because let's face it, those get laughed off. At the end of the day, if you're one of those cheaters thinking you'll just slide through, remember this, walls are closing in. Anti-cheat tech is improving, game companies are getting smarter, and legal consequences are starting to hit where it counts. Your reign of terror in digital playground may not last much longer. And look, if you're still on fence about all this, well, don't just take my word for it. Go out there, see what's happening in industry, and make sure to like, subscribe, and all that bollocks. It helps channel grow. Because if we all keep this conversation alive, we can push for a future where gaming stays fair, fun, and most importantly, free from cheats. So leave your comments and questions below. I might just feature them on channel. I'll see you next time, you magnificent